Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the summary for solving a system of equations by substitution. So basically what I like to do for this video is kind of summarize the process of solving a system of equations by substitution, as well as kind of highlight some tips and tricks and common mistakes that I see in my own workings as well as my students. So basically what we're doing when we're solving a system by substitution is looking for a variable that either has a coefficient of 1 or a coefficient of -1. We then want to kind of solve for that variable. You know, it can be x, y, a, b, m, n, whatever the easiest one to solve for, and then take the value of what that variable equals and plug it into the other equation. When we do that, we now have an equation that is only in terms of one variable, which we can now simplify and solve for that one variable. Then, once we know the value of the one variable, we plug it back into our original equation that had the other that was solved for the other variable, plug it in and solve, and now we know the solution to both variables, so therefore we know the solution of the systems of the equations. So some kind of tips and tricks. As I kind of mentioned, you know, it's a tip and trick, but or it's kind of obvious that the way I teach it every time, but still some students don't want to follow it. So again, when you're doing substitution, always, some people like say, well, I like to solve for y, or I like to solve for x. And forget about it. Solve for the variable that has the coefficient of 1 or -1. If you have if they both have coefficient of 1, then yeah, choose which one you like better, right? Or if none of them have a coefficient of 1, then maybe look to try using elimination, or which one would be easiest to solve for which variable you choose. So, but more than likely, if you're going to be using substitution, you'll at least have a variable that has a coefficient of 1 or -1. The next thing is, it amazes me when students solve for equation, you know, they plug that into the other equation, and they say x equals 2, right? Take that, whatever that value is, and plug it back into the equation that is already solved for y. So if you have like two equations, like y equals 3x plus 1, and you have another equation, 2x minus 7y equals 18, right? And through doing your work, you get x equals 2. Well, if you know the value of x equals 2, don't plug x into here and then try to solve for y, because then exactly what you have to do. You plug x in, and then you solve for y, right? Here, you already solved for y. So all you have to do is plug in x. So it's much easier when doing substitution to plug your variable in to determine both solutions. Now let's look at some common mistakes. The first one, I think, is just evaluating. Students have a hard time understanding really the difference between evaluating with a number and evaluating with an expression. And basically, you know, if I have exactly as I did here, and if I know x is equal to 2, I can plug 2 in for x, right? So if I say x equals 2, and I give you an equation, 2x minus 7y equals 18. Most students, you know, don't have a problem with saying, OK, well, let's do a different example. Let's do 3. Then they say, OK, well, I'll plug in 2 in for x, right? And everybody's OK with that. But what if I say x equals 2y plus 1? Well, it's the exact same thing. Now you're just going to plug in 2y plus 1. Now you plug in 2y plus 1 in for x. So it's the same thing, but a lot of students, that's where they get mixed up. And then making sure you can also simplify this to solve for y. And last thing is, you know, kind of writing your equations. Not writing your equations, writing your solutions. A lot of students will get to this step and they say, oh, I found x equals 2, because they're so used to solving linear equations. Remember, this is a system. When we have two variables and two equations, we're going to have our two solutions, or infinite many or no solution. So if you solve for a value of x or y, make sure you go back, plug it in to find the value of the other variable. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is just a quick little summary of solving a system of equations by substitution. I hope to help, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks.